everyone, welcome back to the channel. And when I reviewed the Unreal Toys version 2 custom Batman Begins head sculpt here on the right recently, I said that I was going to try and bring you guys a nice little visual comparison between the two different custom head sculpts, one by Oaty Customs and the other by Unreal Toys. It's more of a visual aid really, just something to help people out there who are racking their brains trying to decide which one to get. This video should hopefully show you everything you need to see in order to make a nice informed decision. But both heads are intended for this most recent release, Batman Begins Hot Toys figure. The connection on the neck and the way these custom heads are designed, they are meant to go on this suit and body. But I managed to get the most recent Unreal Toys version 2 head sculpt here to sit on the Toy Fair exclusive version of Batman Begins by Hot Toys from quite a few years ago now. Managed to get it to sit on there quite comfortably, but it is intended for, just like the Oaty Customs head, the most recent Hot Toys Batman Begins release. Right, this is Oaty Customs. That is the chap who made this one. This has moving eyes and different interchangeable mouth plates, although the copy I have here is a pre-production copy, so some slight changes were made between this version I have here and the ones that went out to the customers, so do bear that in mind. But that is how you find Oaty Customs on Instagram. You can communicate with them on there. And this is Unreal Toys on Instagram. And that is the chap who was responsible for making the most recent addition to the collection here. Now this one does not have moving eyes, but it comes with 4 interchangeable mouth plates. And that is the info for Unreal Toys. Get in touch with him on Instagram. So as I said, more of a visual aid than a comparison, but you know, I'm going to be showing them both together, and you can call it a comparison video or visual aid, whatever you want to do, but it really is just intended to show you a really good definitive look at both of these head sculpts on this setup here. And once again, that is from the most recent Hot Toys release. That's the box from the figure that you are supposed to use with these head sculpts. And I will always have on the screen in the corner, it'll either say Oaty Customs or Unreal Toys depending on what head sculpt you're seeing on this body at that time. So there's no confusion. I'll make sure that it always says in the corner the name of the artist responsible for the head sculpt you're currently looking at. But you've almost got a little bit of a trade-off for me personally, where I do prefer the more squinted, focused looking eyes, but I think the mouth plate on the Unreal Toys is not as detailed as the Oaty Customs mouth plate. That just has a level of texture and detail to the sculpt that is just insane. I'm not sure how it was done, but it's almost like all the little pores of the skin, you can almost feel them. I'll try and get in as close as I can. Get it to focus. There you go. But yeah, there is a hell of a texture on that. It's very realistic. And on the Unreal Toys, it's just not quite as, you know, it's just not quite at that level as far as detail goes. Just being totally honest, but I do prefer the more squinted eyes, even though these ones don't move and these ones do, and they are more real looking. They're almost like kind of glass eyes. It's crazy. When you know, when a little bit of light catches the eyes, it just makes it look so real. But yeah, I'm torn, man. I don't know. I'm glad I have both, because I think it's kind of an impossible decision for me personally, because I love the aggression of this one, that slight lean in that the Cal has, which he did a hell of a lot in the movie. Most of the time he had that kind of panther-like, you know, that look, and that's captured perfectly on this one. And not quite so much of a lean in on the Oaty Customs. I mean, you can tilt it forward a little bit possibly, but yeah. But yes, we have definitely more of a kind of straight upright positioning, you know, the way it's sculpted on the Oaty Customs on the left, and then on the right with the Unreal Toys there's definitely a slight lean in with the head, slight tilting forward to match up with the aggressive look of the eyes. And once again, it's not sitting on there too flush because it's not actually supposed to go on this Toy Fair exclusive. And I was just noticing here on the Oaty Customs with the mouth plate, the shape of the area where the mouth plate goes on there, it's a different kind of shape to the Unreal Toys. That's more rounded all the way around where the mouth plate goes in at the side there, where the black meets the skin, more rounded off, whereas the Oaty Customs has a bit more of a sudden abrupt kind of curve. And I don't know honestly right now which one is more accurate, so I'll have to go off and do a bit of research, but just showing you that there is a bit of a difference there. But really just to hammer home, there's different intentions here. I mean, that's what I like so much about the Unreal Toys. Clearly he wanted to convey that aggression of the Batman Begins sculpt. That's why it's got that slight kind of tilt forward of the head, whereas the Oaty is more straight up, definitely more upright. So you really do have to remember that when you're making the decision. Do you want that tilt forward? Maybe you don't. I really do, because when I've got him on the shelf and the cape's wrapped around him and he's looking all broody, gosh, that suit does look lovely. That's the old Toy Fair exclusive once again, folks, with that nice charcoal finish. Complements the black cape so well. Whereas the most recent Hot Toys, even this more matte finish Batch 2 suit, is just nowhere near the correct sort of tone it should be, really. I mean, some reference pictures and some scenes it looks like this because they had obviously multiple cowls and suits and capes, the whole thing. So I've definitely seen it look like this, but as I mentioned in the review for this head sculpt, you know, this is really how the Begins suit should look against the black cape. There should be a noticeable contrast between them. I really like that about it. I can almost hear one or two of you out there thinking this is more accurate to how he looked at the beginning of the Dark Knight when he'd been out, you know, for a couple of years wearing this suit. It looks more worn, whereas in Batman Begins it would have been more fresh, you know, it was freshly sprayed. So maybe I'll just shut my big stupid mouth because yeah, you could easily say this is a more accurate Batman Begins look as far as the suit goes, and this more kind of worn, beaten, few years in the game, that's more accurate to the Dark Knight intro, you know. Interesting. I mean, that even looks like the moment where he's about to jump down on Scarecrow's white van. I'm sorry for the screen flickering here, but the Unreal Toys sculpts of Batman Begins have always, I feel, kind of conveyed this perfectly. I mean, the squint in the eyes, the lean forward of the head, it's, I mean, back when the version 1 sculpt came out, this was clearly, you know, the inspiration for that, so another thing to bear in mind. And the Oaty Customs has always reminded me of this picture from the same screen test session, I guess, or photo session when they were doing the promotional photography of Christian Bale in the Batsuit for Batman Begins. But yeah, the Oaty Customs has always reminded me more of this. And again, here's another really famous cool picture from that session. Again, coming back to the Unreal Toys with the squinted eyes, and even the skin tone. It's a terrible quality picture. I will try to flash up on screen a much better quality version of this, but I will say that what I'm seeing right there, the exact tone of skin and the color of the lips and even the texture of the skin, really reminds me of what I'm seeing on the version 2 Unreal Toys sculpt. That's another promotional image of Christian Bale in the Batman Begins suit with a serious bit of head tilt forward going on there. So again, reminding me of what I'm seeing on the Unreal Toys version. And then we have another one that reminds me more of Oaty Customs work, with the just more straight up, perfectly capturing Christian Bale in the cowl. I do love that shot, the way the light hits it. But yeah, if I just try and get the same angle here, let me just see if I can do that. The light's not hitting his eyes quite the same. Let me just go ahead and get the light in his eyes. Turn the brightness down a touch. So we just look at that for a minute. And we come back here. Yep. It's also the angle. Got to get the angle right. Yeah. I was going to say the neck looked longer in the picture here, but it is taken from a kind of lower angle. And when we do that, yep, that looks pretty damn spot on. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy the video and find it informative, entertaining. If you do, please don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a bunch. And let me know your thoughts on how you're feeling about both the head sculpts. Which one would you go for? Which one do you have? And all that good stuff. But be respectful, folks, because I'm sure the makers of the head sculpts will check out the video at some point. So just bear in mind the amount of blood, sweat and tears that must go into perfecting something like this. It's not easy. I don't know the process for either one of these. I don't know if 3D printers are involved or if it's purely just sculpting something from scratch, old school style. I don't know. But the results can't be easy to come to. I'm sure it takes just so many hours and sleepless nights of tweaking things, and you know, just mad respect to both artists for their incredible dedication, incredible work. So enjoy the video, and I'll see you soon. I might chime in from time to time during the video, who knows, I might be filming something and really feel compelled to say something in particular, so you might hear me talk again, but mostly it's going to be music and just footage from different angles of both the head sculpts. And obviously the Unreal Toys version 2 head sculpt here has more of a squinted eye look, more focused, slightly more aggressive, especially when you put the aggressive mouth plate in. So I think this one, that was one of the aims, was to really convey that kind of intense aggression from Batman Begins, whereas the Oaty is not as aggressive, but certainly looks as real can be. video, and also just a celebration of some incredible work by two different artists. Honestly, it's just mind-blowing how incredible both these sculpts are, and I think you can't go wrong with either one of them, and that's the God's honest truth. They're both absolutely incredible. So I hope this video will help you in the future if you ever need to make a decision which one you're going to get. And yeah, I'll see you. Oh, I'm going to review the Unreal Toys version of the Robert Pattinson Hot Toys custom collar. Got that coming up on the channel soon, and a few other bits and pieces. Alright, see you soon. Take it easy. Bye bye.